You've heard that meditation is this amazing, life-changing thing, but whenever you try it, your mind just races and it feels impossible. By the end of this video, you'll have a much better understanding of what meditation actually is and what it isn't, and how to craft a meditation practice that actually works for you. My name is Sean. I'm a mental health coach. I see 40 plus clients a week, and I have a 98% satisfaction score from over 1,500 ratings. So we're going to do this in 3 ways. We're going to talk about why meditation isn't as woo-woo as you think, why emptying your mind isn't the goal, and how to craft a meditation practice that fits you specifically. When I was younger, I thought meditation was a bunch of hippy-dippy crap. But then I watched a documentary that talked about how meditation was just sort of like exercise for your mind. And it also talked about how there are all sorts of different clinical benefits to meditation. So one example is that regular meditation practice helps to strengthen your frontal lobes. And that's what originally hooked me into the idea of meditation. I was like, okay, I'm down for exercising my brain. I like my brain and I like exercising it. So let's check this out further. I started with the Headspace app, which was a great place to start because it basically just let my mind idly run, which is actually more important than you would think because we are constantly inundated with stimuli, with things like technology, where we are constantly scrolling and gaming and we have this constant stimulus in our face. Our mind never gets the chance to sort of empty out. And so as I did this, I started to notice a real difference in my mood day to day, and so did my wife for that matter. And through doing this, I discovered that meditation could be a whole lot more practical and grounded than I originally thought. So if meditation isn't this spooky, mystical thing, hippy-dippy mystical thing, then what is it? Let's dive into it. So as I continued to explore meditation, I started to learn more about it. And one thing that I learned is that the original goal of meditation was to achieve something called enlightenment, which is a term that most of us have heard, but it's a bundled term. It has so many different meanings and definitions that it has come to not mean anything. So to explain what enlightenment means, first we're going to talk about a concept that I discovered that was revolutionary for me in my meditation practice. And that concept is an Ālambana. I know it's kind of a funny word. It is a Sanskrit word that roughly translates to support. And the idea of an Ālambana is that it is kind of one of the base ingredients in meditation. I sort of think about it like when you're cooking, if you have olive oil and onion and garlic, you can use that as the base for a bunch of different dishes, and then you sort of build your dish on top of that. And Ālambanas work very much in the same way. And what's so cool is that once you understand what an Ālambana is, then you can look around at different kinds of meditation, and you can actually kind of identify the component parts of them. You can be like, oh, there it is, that's the Ālambana. Let me use another analogy to explain what an Ālambana is. You know when you put on your shirt first thing in the morning and you can feel your shirt, but then as you go about your day, your shirt the feeling of your shirt sort of fades away? The same thing is true with an Ālambana. So essentially, an Ālambana helps us to focus our mind so that we have something to come back to sort of let the other things go. And over time, as you continue to focus on this thing, it too starts to fade away. And that's how we achieve what people call the no-mind state. And the truth is that anything can be an Ālambana. Breath can be an Ālambana. A candle can be an Ālambana. Sex can be an Ālambana. Washing dishes can be an Ālambana. It's just that usually there are common prescribed Ālambana, but those don't necessarily work for every person. And so by finding an Ālambana that works best for you, it can help you to build a meditation practice that actually fits you rather than being sort of a one-size-fits-all type of deal. I remember when I said that the goal of meditation is enlightenment. That's really important because even if you choose to use it just for, stress reduction or whatever, it is important to know what the tool was originally made for. Not to mention, it means that the goal of meditation is not to empty your mind. So when you are trying to meditate and your mind is racing, oftentimes what really gets people stuck when it comes to meditation is that they are trying to fight their mind because they think that they're supposed to be emptying it. But that's not actually the goal of meditation, that's the result. Because when you are focusing on your Ālambana and your mind wanders, and then you call it back to your Ālambana, it is like you are flushing one thought out of your mind. And again, that is why when I started meditating and gave my mind that idle time, that's why I started to have such a better mood day to day, is because my mind was able to flush out all of the extra stuff. It's sort of like on your computer, if you have a whole bunch of windows open or a whole bunch of background processes running, your computer is going to slow down and get sort of lethargic over time. And so by regularly meditating, I was able to stop and close out those unnecessary processes. So when you are trying to find an Ālambana for you, there are two things that you want to consider. The first is, does it help to focus my mind? And the second is, how sustainable is it? So for instance, there are some Ālambanas that are very powerful, but they're not really accessible. So a good example of this is, dunking your face in water can be extremely grounding, but how often can you realistically dunk your face in water, and how often are you realistically going to want to do that? Whereas other Ālambana are very accessible, but may not be powerful enough for your mind. So for instance, just focusing on your natural inhale and exhale is great. You can do that anytime you want, anywhere you want, but for a lot of people, especially for people who experience any kind of neurodivergence, just focusing on your breath may not be a powerful enough Ālambana, because typically people who are neurodivergent have their mind works at a faster rate. And so they need a more powerful Ālambana to ground themselves. And what I often discover when I'm working with people is that they actually already had an Ālambana, they just didn't realize it, because they thought that all that meditation was sitting cross-legged with your hands like this and going Om. And when we discover that whatever it is that they were already doing is actually an Ālambana, and they give themselves permission to engage in it with that intention, it actually really transforms the experience for them. If you would like help discovering your own Ālambana, this is something that I help clients find all the time. So I'll leave a link down in the description where you can set up a free 50-minute session with me. Otherwise, here is a little action item for you. So 1, list 5 activities that naturally draw your focus. 2, try each of those for 5 minutes and notice which one quiets your mind the most. And 3, pick one and commit to a 7-day micro practice. Don't make the mistake of trying to jump right into meditating 30 minutes, an hour a day, unless you know that jumping in, running before you can walk actually works better for you, because for some people that is the case. But otherwise, start slow and build up from there, because in my experience working with people, that is how you build a much more sustainable practice. Okay, so at this point in the video, you have everything that you need to build a meditation practice for yourself. If you want to get more into the sort of spiritual aim of meditation, talking a little bit about enlightenment and what it is, that's where we're going to go next. But if you don't want to get into this sort of like woo-woo topic, feel free to stop the video here. You've got everything that you need. Otherwise, strap in. Now that we understand this sort of fundamental ingredient to meditation that is an Ālambana, let's talk about the overall goal of meditation, which is enlightenment, and what that bundled term actually means. What an Ālambana essentially helps us to do is to separate out from our mind. So our mind is constantly doing all sorts of stuff, right? It has all sorts of stuff in it. It has ego and thoughts and emotions. But just for a second, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to observe your mind. Observe all of the thoughts, ego, emotions in your mind. And now as you observe all that stuff, you can see it, right? You can watch it. And the question is, who's watching all that stuff? Who is observing all that stuff? And the answer, you can open your eyes back up, the answer is that that's you. All the other stuff is just your mind. But the one watching all of that stuff, observing all of that stuff, that's you. And you can even try to observe the one who is watching all of that stuff, the you that is watching all of that stuff. But then the question is, who's watching them? And you can do that for infinity, out and out and out and out and out. And normally, on a day-to-day basis, we get sort of sucked into our mind. It's sort of like if you were sitting in a movie theater and you forgot that you were watching a movie. You got like sucked into the movie and thought that everything that was happening on screen was real. And for a long time, I had this question in my head, which is, if you were to ask an enlightened person, are you enlightened? What would they say? Because my understanding of enlightenment up until recently had been that enlightenment is the freedom from ego and, all freedom from the mind, essentially, that you are constantly aware that you are sitting in the movie theater rather than being sucked into the movie. And so if they said, yes, I am enlightened, then that seems like getting sucked into the movie, right? Because that inherently has ego. That statement inherently has ego. So I couldn't reconcile this question that was in my head until I heard something from a writer on Substack named Ryan Delaney, which is that there are no enlightened people, there are only enlightened actions. And that made it click for me, because it is the same exact way that I approach purpose. By the way, if you want to know how I approach purpose, there will be a video that'll pop up here in the corner or down in the description, depending on where you're watching it, that goes into how I think about purpose. I do a lot of purpose work with my clients. But essentially, the idea is that enlightenment is something, it is a choice that you make every day. It is realizing that you are sitting in a movie theater every day, every week, every moment. You are realizing that you are in the movie theater. And every time that you do that, you're enlightened. And so it is not that you are enlightened, it is that you are taking an enlightened action. You are living your life in an enlightened way. And that actually made sense to me and made me much more understand what it meant to be enlightened. And when I talk about this sort of thing, oftentimes people will ask me, wait, isn't separating from your mind bad? Isn't that just dissociation? And the answer is no, they are actually opposites. To continue this movie theater analogy that I've been using, dissociation is like if you put on a blindfold and headphones so that you were not aware, couldn't see or hear anything that was happening in the movie theater. Whereas being enlightened is just being aware that you are in a movie theater and that you are not part of the movie. And the difference is that what is happening on screen does not disrupt your peace. It doesn't mean that you don't feel it, because who hasn't cried or laughed at a movie? You still absolutely feel it. It just doesn't disrupt your peace. You can appreciate the emotions because you know that you are separate from them. Whereas if you are your emotions and they feel bad, then you are bad. But if you are separate from them, then they're just emotions and we can appreciate them the same way that we can appreciate a sad movie or a tragic play, so on and so forth. And we can do the same thing in our day-to-day lives. And that's why it's called a meditation practice, because ultimately the idea is that over time, we start to live our lives the same way. So, if you want to start exploring and finding your Ālambana and building a meditation practice that actually works for you, and who knows, maybe even taking some of these enlightened actions, comment meditation below for a free 50-minute session with me. Now maybe while you were watching this, it just all got a little too woo-woo, and you were like, what is all of this spirituality crap? If that is the case, I recently made a video that is about spirituality and sort of grounding the woo-woo, making spirituality something that is more approachable. If you want to check that out, it'll pop up here or down in the description depending on where you're watching this. Check it out. I hope it's helpful to you. Thanks for watching this, and I'll see you next time. Bye!